In the last video, we discussed about states and props, and we also built our search box. In this video, we are going to discuss how can you transfer or communicate the data from child component to the parent component. The parent to child communication was quite straightforward using props, but it's not as straightforward as it was when it comes to child to parent. Child to parent communication goes through a callback method, and I am going to tell you how is that possible in this video. And then after that, we are going to discuss how can we animate our simple header section whenever we type in another keyword. For example, let's see how it happens in the deployed app. So here, whenever I type in, let's say, code, so whenever I start typing, it goes small, and whenever I remove it, it again goes big. So we are going to implement this simple animation after we discuss the child to parent communication. So without any further delay, let's get started. So first of all, let's have a look at our search box component. So inside the search box, we have an input, and as you must have read in your childhood days that in these HTML components like input and all these things, we have these event handlers. We have these events which are something like on click and on mouse down, on change, on these things. Like there are many events. In React, we have the synthetic events for these events, and just very similar to what we used to have in HTML, which we used to call on submit or on change, we also have that in React. So I am going to use the on change event. In here, it is going to have a function. Again, don't forget the curly braces. Curly braces basically means an expression inside JSX. So yes, let us see what happens whenever we try to change it. Let me log the console.log whatever user types. So basically these event handlers automatically gets passed on with the event. So yes, let us, inside the event object, we have something called event.target.value. So using this value, we can actually see what the user is typing. So let us see. Let me open the console and let me start typing hello. So as soon as user changes something, as soon as any change that user makes, we have that thing. So now I am going to tell you how can you communicate what is the user typing to our app component. Remember, the search box is the child component and the app is the parent component. And now let's see how can we communicate this thing from child to parent. Again, as I said, there is no such concept of reverse props. We can't pass on the reverse from props from child to parent. But what we can do is we can make a sort of method that can handle what happens when we do those things, and we can pass down that method into our component as a prop and then call that method from inside the other component. That might seem very confusing as of now, but don't worry, let me show you. So I am going to create a simple method. Let's say handle type or handle input change. Yeah, that should be good. Handle input change, and let me do one thing. Let me create an arrow function. Just for your information, if you created a normal function, then and if you try to save change the state from inside a normal function inside a React component, you will face a lot of issues. Maybe we can discuss it sometime later on, but yes, that is why I prefer having this arrow functions inside my class based components, because this keyword is not bound here. So yes, let me just follow along. For now, we can probably have a completely separate discussion on the this keyword, which is THIS, this keyword, how it is handled in normal functional components and how it is handled in the ES6 arrow functions. But yes, for now, let's just follow along. So yes, in here, let me say that it is going to alert, like it was called, I am called, and whenever it is called, it is just going to put in an alert. So instead of passing the value, instead of passing the data, so earlier we have seen that we can pass on the data as props. now comes the very interesting part. We can pass on the functions as well. So I am going to pass this on as a function prop. Let's say I'm going to name it on input change. How does that seem? That seems pretty good to me. And then I'm going to pass on this dot handle input change there. So now inside our search box, so one very quick refactor, if we go inside our header component, so if you know about this ES6 destructuring, we can directly destructure the title or the basically the object properties from the object inside the parameters as well. So that might seem very confusing if you're not if you're new to ES6, but yes, that is something which is, instead of saying props dot head title, we can directly destructure it. Destructure does only means we are just extracting the head title out of our props object. So instead of writing props dot this every time, we can directly extract out head title by using this syntax. This is a very simple syntax. There's nothing, no rocket science in here. So yes, I'm going to do the same thing in my search box container. So inside my search box, if I go inside search box, now inside my props, I am getting a handle input change. So what am I going to do is, on change, I am, instead of using this console.log, I'm just going to call this handle input change. Did you see the beauty? I have defined a method inside my parent component, and instead of using that method inside the parent component itself, I am passing down that method inside my search box component, and then inside that search box component I am calling whenever user types something. And see the magic, now it is going to get called as soon as I type. Alright, so handle input change is not a function. Why did it come? Very simple, because the name of the prop is not handle input change. The name of the function definitely is, but the name of the prop is on input change. So we could do two things. First, we could just rename this to handle input change and this should make it work, or otherwise we can just use on input change inside our search box, and that should do the thing. Let me refresh it. Yes, and let me try it out. So if I type anything, let's say hi, I am called. Did you see the beauty? This thing is getting called inside my child component, but it is executed inside my parent component, and that's the beauty. And now you might have already guessed that since we can call, we can obviously pass on some parameters as well. So I'm just going to pass on the value of whatever the user is typing inside this method, and I'm just going to call it, let's say, the input text. How does that seem? That seems pretty cool to me, input text. And let me log it here, console.log input text is input text. Let's see what happens now. Let me refresh the page and let me start hello world. Did you see? It is displaying it. So that's the magic. That's the beauty of having callback methods, passing on methods as props and then calling them in the child component but executing them in the parent component. That is very, very awesome. So this was basically how can you pass on the data from your child component to your parent component. Now we need to discuss about how can we actually animate our header image and the header text. That is also very, very simple. Just a simple note, we are not going to discuss about transition groups and React animation groups and all those things. That is a complete different topic of discussion. Whereas we in this project, we are just going to see simple, very, very simple CSS transition. So yes, if you are coming from CSS background, it would sound very, very easy to you. And basically my idea is, what am I going to do is I'm going to create two classes, which is head image expanded, and I'm also going to create another class which is head image contracted. And then I am going to, let's say, define a min width here as, let's say, 250 pixels in the expanded one, and the max width to be, let's say the max width is, min width is 230 and max width is 250. That sounds pretty cool to me. And inside my contracted class, I'm going to have the max width as, let's say, 60 pixels and the min width as 40 pixels. Now if we want to use these max width and min width, I have to set the width as auto, and now I am going to add the thing which adds the magic. I am going to use the CSS transition. Inside the transition, the property which I'm going to use transition on is max width and min width both. So let's say max width, let's say 1 second should be good enough, and what about min width? Again, 1 second should be good enough. So a lot of things are going to break if I directly save it here. So yes, you are going to see a very big image because we have now set width as auto. But the thing is, our header, let us go to the header thing. So our header is just using head image. It's not using the head image expanded and head image contracted. So let me see what happens if I just add the head image expanded here. And as you might have guessed, it is going to fix it to the correct size. Now all I need to do is somehow magically make this as contracted whenever some user starts typing into it. So as soon as user starts typing into it, it should contract. The class name should change as contracted, and whenever this is empty, it should change it to be, let's say, expanded. So that is the only thing that we need to figure out. And now, as I told you, when do we need state? We need state whenever we need to save some data for either showing some data to the screen or some operations, logical operations that we need to perform. So here we need to perform some sort of we need to have some sort of a data in our application which is going to keep a track on whether user is typing something or not. Once it figures out that user has started typing, it should automatically trigger something, give a trigger that this thing has changed and now you need to change this thing as well. So now I'm going to go back to my app. Now the thing is, we know that input text is here. Whenever user types something, we have that value in our handle input change, and this handle input change gets called every time. Let's use it. Let's create a boolean value in our state. Let's say header expanded or something like that. Expanded. This looks cool, and it's going to be a boolean, say true, because initially, of course, it should be true, because initially it should be expanded. And let us do one more thing. Let us, whenever user starts typing something, let us change the state, this dot set state. Remember, do not do this dot state dot header text, or header expanded is equal to false. Never ever do that. Never ever do that. Otherwise it won't re-render. So yes, this dot set state, and here I need to pass on the new thing, which is header expanded to be, let's do it a false as of now. Let's see how to make that work afterwards. But yeah, so now I am going to pass on this header expanded value as a prop to my header. This dot state dot header expanded. So now I have this boolean true or false, this flag whether we should expand the header or we should contract the header inside my header component. So let me destructure that as well. And now all we need to do is use a sort of conditional to have this class name based on this header expanded condition. And just to remind you of your old childhood days of programming, ternary operation, the ternary expression. So ternary expression just says that true, if it is true then do this, otherwise do that. Let me remind you, so this is some condition. So if this condition is true, it will perform this action, otherwise it will perform that action. So this is just a simple ternary operation. Let me, what happened to this? Yeah, cool. So let me, now since again, as I told you, if we want to use variables or expressions inside our JSX, what we need to do, we need to have curly braces. And inside our curly braces, I am going to use one more thing here, which is called template literals. So you can read more about it. Basically, template literals allow us to inject our variables inside our string. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to, using the syntax, don't worry about the syntax, just search template literal on Google and that is going to appear. And also, for if you want, just comment it down. If you want, I can create another video series on ES6 JavaScript. Let me know if you want. I will be waiting for your comments. Yes, cool. So let us just start. So this head image, basically, now we have this header expanded here. So I'm going to create a ternary expression here, header expanded. If this is true, then I want to have this as expanded. Otherwise, I want to have this as contracted. And now we don't need this ternary expression here. I mean this template literal here. We can even use single quotes. And in this case, contracted. As simple as that. And now you are going to see the magic. As soon as I type, it is going to contract, but it will not expand. For that, we will need to have some other logic as well. But yes, recapping what we did till now, basically we added a ternary operator inside our class name to have a conditional class name. In case the header expanded is true, we are going to have this class name. In case it is false, we are going to have this class name. And just one last thing, we want to we just don't want to have it false. We actually want to have it something like it should watch over the input text. We can have something like this: input text dot I think length was the correct thing, length. If this is greater than maybe 0, yeah, then we need to set it as false. Otherwise, we need to set it as true. So now don't worry, if you are an experienced JavaScript developer, you are going to curse me for writing this, but don't worry, I'm going to come at what you are thinking right now. Don't worry about that. I'm just telling you, like, just to see whether it works or not. Let us see. Let me type hello and let me type back again. It works like magic, and I hope that you understood this. Now a little bit of code refactoring. All I need to do is, did you see one thing, like we are checking input text dot length is greater than 0, and then based on that we are just having conditionals false or true. But did you notice that this as well is an expression which results in a true or false value? So instead of this, we can directly have a not operator, which makes it super concise. And just have a look at it now. It works wonders. And now one more very small refactor. This is something specific to JavaScript. In JavaScript, you don't need to have, in case you are dealing with strings, you don't need to have a string dot length greater than 0. You can directly put a Boolean operator on the string. So in case if it is an empty string, it will return into false, which turns into a true because of this negation operator. So yes, because typecasting is possible in JavaScript, like it's dynamically typed and so on. Yeah. So if we type on something like this, it works. It is amazing. And just one last thing for today, we need to do something very similar for our header text as well. Let's just quickly go back to header.jsx and just copy and paste this whole thing and paste it inside our text. And now it's going to look like this. Let us quickly change header text expanded instead of header image expanded. And now let's see. Let us put some transition to our header element as well. So I'm going to put the transition as font size, and let's keep it 1 second just to keep things consistent. And dot head text expanded. Let us keep it to be how about 36 pixel. That seems pretty cool. 36 pixels. Let us see how that looks. Yeah, that increased it a little bit. And let's have one for the head text contracted, and let's keep the font size to be 12 pixels should be enough. And now you are up for a magic. It looks very, very cool. Hello. And that is, now we are almost done with most of the our app. Now we are just remaining with a few sections, which is the result section. So let's get onto it in the next video. See you in the next video.